Dr. Anthony. He's a quote to George Washington in Maryland.
Mm-hmm.
He does.
Yeah. Well, unfortunately, it's not the most exciting topic, so it's kind of got to figure out a way to liven it up a bit.
What are you talking about?
Scholarships, fellowships, and internships.
Yeah.
How to get money out of the federal government.
Right.
So this is forward and backwards. Is there a point or two?
Well, the only thing is with this being so reflective surface.
It doesn't.
That,
Yeah, okay.
I haven't been able to find anything yet that actually works. Like, I'll be back in a second.
Man, all I can say is I wish I had a TV this big in my house to watch the Super Bowl.
Why don't you get you a projector, a cheap projector? That's why I got hooked up to.
Morning, everybody. Thank you. Pentagon. Hey, how's it going?
How you doing?
Good.
Good.
Man, they keep it cold in here.
I was gonna say.
It's like, man, it'd be a great place to hang some meat.
Right. Wow.
Keep my teeth from chattering while I'm talking.
So, good semester so far?
Yeah, it's fun because, you know, I just started in June.
Right.
And so June and July were really quiet, and all of a sudden
Yeah.
August, the whole world shows up. I'm like, hey, a minute, I used to drive in the parking lot, there was no parking, no
Right.
cars. This has got to be the earliest starting school I've ever seen. I mean, when I was in school, I had 8 o'clock classes.
Right.
You know, I didn't even have a car when I was in college, but you know, it didn't seem like there were a lot of people in 8 o'clock classes.
Right.
Here, I get here 8 o'clock on the dot, and the whole parking lot's filled already.
Well, somebody told me it's more than it has been in the past.
Yeah.
So this is an anomaly this semester, I think.
I heard that this was the biggest incoming freshman class, but
Right.
you know, I don't know about you, but I didn't have a car when I was a freshman.
No, I did.
But then again, I'm walking to campus and I'm seeing kids with iPads and $6 Starbucks. I'm like, I didn't have that when I was a kid either. So, you know, I guess the world's changed a little bit while I was getting older.
It has.
So,
I didn't have a car till I graduated.
the same thing with me. I did not have a car from birth from graduation.
Yeah.
I graduated in May. I started my first job in June, and I got my first car in that 2-week stretch because I needed to drive back and forth to work.
Oh, okay.
And that was my first car when I was 22, going to my first job.
Right.
So
I was fortunate because the guy that I finished my master's same time, another guy finished his undergrad.
Yeah.
And he was going to work for the same company. He was in the same complex I was. So I just rode with him for 4 months until
there you go.
and saved up and then got my car. So yeah, it's a little bit different how you do
I
it.
remember my first 3 cars were all used. That wasn't until my 4th car that I got my first new car.
New car.
Now I see these kids that are 16 years old and the parents are giving them
Right.
new
I was
cars.
gonna say, I don't even have new cars now. I don't believe in them. I got demonstration models, you know, which are
Yeah.
almost new. That's the closest I got to do.
Well, it drives me crazy that, you know, as soon as you drive it off the lot, you
Right.
use 50% of your value in the first hour you own the car.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Seems kind of pointless.
Yeah.
So,
That's why I think I'll buy it while it's already depreciated. Yep, let me get it then.
I had a buddy who used to buy cars from like Hertz and Avis, the rental car. But, and, you know, he got great deals. But I said, "Have you ever seen the way people drive rental cars? I don't think I want a car to rent a car his whole life. No."
I thought about doing that one time, but it wasn't any different. So I didn't. It wasn't any better. I didn't see where it was any better of a deal. But I would still love it.
And also, this comes off this correction course. So, I mean, people, once you finish it, you'll be simplified to service process. It takes about an hour, 2 hours, and I'll have a link.
You gonna be here at the end?
Yeah.
All right. Promise me you won't let me walk out of here without my laptop.
Oh,
I tend to forget things, and I'll walk out of here and just
Okay, no,
get back to
I'll make sure that.
Damn, I forgot my laptop.
You'd be surprised how many people leave their power supplies.
Oh wow.
I'll never forget. I used to work for the DoD, and I used to travel around with a very senior level guy from the Pentagon that was a PhD.
Okay.
And we would go to a meeting together, and he'd sit down, you know, and he'd put out his briefcase and his drinks and his computer and his calculator, and he'd sprawl his whole life on his table, right? You know, and at the end of the meeting, he'd stand up and he'd just walk out of the room and head for the rental car to go back to the plane. And I'd have to run out to him in the parking lot and go, "Did you forget something?" And he's like, "What?" Like, "Everything, your whole life is still on the table. Go pack it up." I mean, I hope you're not expecting me to do that for you.
Wow. I guess he was.
I mean, I never understood whether there was just no connection between book intelligence and common sense, or if they just thought that they all were, you know, should be waited on. But
Right.
either way, I didn't care for it.
Yeah. Wow.
Holy smokes, who the heck's queuing that thing?
Just follow you around, that's all.
Well, that would be really cool if it could do that. So we're now 2 months into our new house, and
Yeah.
they come back at 30 days to get the punch list of all the things wrong with the house.
Oh, it's a brand new house.
Yeah, I mean, it's the first house my wife and I ever built in our lives, and it was quite the traumatic experience watching them build it. And so now every day we go around the house and, they didn't do that, they didn't do that, this is missing, that's missing. And so we have 2 sets of lights out on the back of the house that, motion sensitive. And 3 of the 4 lights don't work. And so I'm like, that kind of defeats the purpose.
So one of my business contacts and also a licensee at the university. I've known him now since 2007 or something. And a pretty good friend. They built a retirement home up in the mountains near Jefferson, which is kind of toward the Asheville boom area. They've had nothing but hard with this thing, contracted this, that, the other thing. And it's been raining up there constantly. So, every time they go in, they lose a shoe in the driveway. So they've christened it Mudsucker Manor.
Let's get right to it. Well, the day we moved in, they had not finished our house. We were supposed to have a tile floor and a master bathroom. We were walking on cement board for 10 days before they came in and put the tile floor down. So it was quite the ordeal. So, just.
Now, a lot of people just gravitate towards the auditorium. And the only reason I came here is because you mentioned it.
Go over there and trail on the video.
Maybe for shadow puppets or something.
Well, just I just picked up, but I'm not sure. But I did, but it doesn't really help me. Yeah. Oh, the find website to help. Oh yeah, please, because I'll be preparing for definitions now.
Oh, Lordy.
I need to define.
Morning, how you doing?
Just
Fine.
what I'm doing right now.
Anybody else coming?
Oh yeah.
Is it all
Oh yeah.
the staff or
I did focus on the ink classification first. And again, I got to do those requirements at first. All the and then I can try to help her. It doesn't just recall her enough.
purpose of getting a ranking presentation?
Yeah, I just looked it up and some of them are kind of easy. Very simple one.
Grader.
Oh, yeah. Hey, Steve. And I got your email.
Okay.
Oh, yeah, thank you. Thank you very much.
Actually, this chair's a lot more comfortable than my desk chair.
Just kind of find a way to.
Yes, I mean, the room is about, I think, 1.5 to 2 years old.
I remember these meetings in here last year.
No, they're the same. Yeah, I've used them for class. Me?
So what's the?
Students, there's going to be a 5-minute quiz at the end as part of our SACS assessment to see if you're paying attention to the whole during the seminar. A little advance notice there. Yeah, otherwise you might just nod along.
That's spanky. Use that when you talk yourself under.
Actually, this was a giveaway at career fair
Yeah.
20 years ago. I actually used it on, in fact. And it's like, oh, this is pretty done.
Wow.
It's got a little tab and pretty tall.
Oh, and tablet on one side, laying on the other. That's pretty good. Is it zero gravity, so you can work music in space there?
What time do you
1 minute past.
1 minute? One more?
Somebody want to turn me on?
We make sure he's starting to work.
Oh, yeah.
God, that screen's big on there. Well, eyes when people don't see it.
I didn't see it either.
Can we come back in here on Super Bowl Sunday and watch the football game on there? It's bigger than my TV at home.
This is really weird. You're in real time, but I'm delayed.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
It's interesting.
I'm pretty slow too.
See?
Yeah, but I stopped moving. I'm still moving.
Yeah. It's very slow.
It's interesting.
How did they do that? Or there's
Well,
a quiz.
it's moving, so.
Good question for the
That's the
quiz.
Mythbusters.
In 1 second.
Maybe it's going to Pittsburgh and back. My image.
It's electronics. They travel at the speed of light.
You can't trust electronics.
Yeah, no, that's, yeah, the light's on, but I'm getting.
Yeah, no, it doesn't do sound. It's just a record.
Oh, this is just for recording?
Right.
I thought it was for the
No, no,
speakers in the room.
no.
Oh, okay.
You ready? Everybody done?
Okay. Good morning. Welcome to the first ERC seminar of the academic year. I'm glad you're here because you'll find a lot of information, especially students looking for funding for graduate school, whether it's master's or PhD. There are a lot of scholarships, fellowships, and internships available to qualified students. By qualified, I mean what the Department of Defense considers qualified. Mr. Ed Monachino has experience both with the National Institutes of Health as well as the Department of Defense before he came to A&T to be the Industrial Liaison Officer for the ERC. Mr. Monachino is a native of New York, and he's going to be talking now about scholarships, fellowships, and internships. Before he gets started, I think Dr. Nicely has an announcement for the bioengineering students.
Well, just that those who just came, there'll be a 5-minute quiz at the end as part of our SACS assessment process. So I thought you should have that advance notice so you can pay attention to the seminar.
And of course, on your desks, you will find a survey. Please ignore that it says summer 2016. We had to go through an IRB process to get them updated, and it's not been done yet. So please treat that as meaning fall 2016 and answer the questions in that manner. We're just trying to gauge the effectiveness and topics of our seminar series. So please do participate in those surveys. They are anonymous, and you can leave them on your desk, and I'll pick them all up in the end. But please do be sure to complete them. Thank you.
So I'd like to thank all of you, both here and remotely, for coming to take time out of your schedule to listen to this talk. Thank Dr. Pai for asking me to do this. When he originally asked me to do this, he asked for DoD scholarships and fellowships, and I, being the overachiever I am, added internships and non-DoD, and I'll explain to you a little later why I broadened it to be a little bit more contentful. By way of introduction quickly, when I was in Washington, D.C. 7 years ago, I was working at the Pentagon with the, at that time it was called the Director of Defense Science and Engineering, DDR&E. It's now been renamed to the Assistant Secretary of Defense for Research and Engineering, ASDR&E. And the mission of that group was to direct and provide leadership to all science and technology that was done across the entire Department of Defense. And in that office was a STEM development office, which was totally dedicated to STEM education, everything, scholarships, fellowships, and internships. So that's where my background came on this subject. Over the last few years, with all the budget cuts, there's been a drastic change to this, and you'll see that there's a little bit less going on in the DoD side, more going on in the non-DoD side, and that's partly why I added the non-DoD. I am very used to giving scientific presentations. This is not a scientific presentation. It can be a little dry at times. So I'd like to do two things. The first thing is, instead of me doing a 50-minute presentation and you asking questions at the end, if you have a question from a slide or something I say, throw your hands up and let's do it real time and make this a little bit more interactive. And secondly, when we get about the fourth slide in, I'm going to do a poll and ask you guys to raise your hands because this presentation can go in 3 different directions, and depending on how you guys vote, that'll determine how the presentation goes. Okay, so this is what I'd like to come out of this presentation. When you're looking for financial aid, the first thing that you definitely need to understand is what is your personal needs and where are you now and where are you going. If you don't understand where you are, you're not going to be able to get the right financial aid. Once you understand what you are, what you're going, and what you're doing, then the next thing you do is look at what's the best thing for you. If you're looking purely for funding for education, or just paying for your education, you're looking for a scholarship. If you're looking for financial aid to help your education, but you're also looking for the work experience, then you're looking for a fellowship or an internship. And I'll explain to you the difference between those. I highly encourage you to do your research, talk to people, look on the internet, call the offices, interact, because the bottom line is there's a lot of nuances to all of these, and you have to understand the requirements, the similarities and differences, and the benefits, the eligibility, the focus areas, the timelines, and the work requirements, and they can drastically skew your ability to get the funding and your ability to succeed with these. So I'm going to start out really high level because I didn't know the level of the folks in the room here, and I'm going to just give you 3 definitions before we get into the meat of it. So scholarships are financial aid that does not have to be repaid. It is basically a pile of cash that you use to pay for your education. And it can come from multiple places: federal, state government, corporate, foundations, organizations, universities, any place can provide these. And there are definitely different things about who provides them to you and what the strings are attached and how fast they come depending on where it comes from. These are usually in several different categories. There's merit-based, which is usually based on academics. There's student-specific. So if a scholarship specifically wants to reward gender, race, religion, whatever, they can do that. There are career-specific ones. If a college or university or organization is looking for a certain type of student, they can reward on that. And of course there's athletic, and then there are creative contests where you write essays or do science fairs. So there's multiple ways to get a scholarship. These are mostly focused on high school seniors who are looking to pay for their college education. But there are a lot of programs, which I will show you, where you can get scholarships all the way through your undergrad, all the way through your grad, and on. So fellowships are very short term, anywhere from a few months to a few years, but they're 100% focused on professional development of the person. So usually a corporation or a government agency will offer a fellowship, offering you to do research for them in a particular area. They benefit by getting your research support. You benefit by learning how to do the research and learning how to do work for a company or an organization. And at the end, the hope is that you will transition off that fellowship and go to work for the company or the government or organization that gave you the fellowship. Internships are usually just for the summer, but they can extend for a full year. Internships can be paid, unpaid, or partially paid. Some of them come in the form of a basic stipend. Some of them come in the form of paying expenses. And again, some of those are tied to doing research for a company or an organization.
One question. For fellowships, are they all the same with regard to the fact the student must do some kind of work involved, or do some require work and others not require work?
To my knowledge, I have yet to see a fellowship that does not require some sort of work product, whether it be basic fundamental lab research or writing a report or doing literature search or something, but there's some work associated with it. Okay, so this is where we get interesting. I literally have some 45 scholarship, fellowships, and internships in this presentation. I have a summary slide for each one, and if I try to go through all 45, I know all of you will beg me to let you go. So what I want to do is I'm going to start with the D ones, because those were the ones I was asked to provide, and it gives you an overview of the process, and then we can do some of the non-ones. So show of hands, how many undergrads do we have here? Okay, how many grads, masters, the postdoc? Just a little bit more. And professors, researchers, staff? Well, more, most of them, okay. All right, so I will do a little bit of scholarship and try to focus more on the fellowship. But if you're interested in anything else, let me know. Now, the one thing I wanted to show you was that with the DoD, when you see tri, that means tri-service. That means Army, Navy, Air Force are all involved. If you see something like USN or USAF or USA, that means it's just one particular service. Down here, I've actually gone through many of the government agencies, from the Department of Education, the Department of Energy, EPA, NOAA, NIH. So it's a really NSF, it's a huge scan of what's going on across the whole federal government. There are also a lot of foundations and corporations that do this work also. So the message is there's a ton of it out there, but you got to really go look for it and you got to really understand it. And what's important is if you're an engineer, you may want to go to one agency. If you're a scientist, you may want to go to another agency. If you're a liberal arts person, you may want to go to another agency. So it's important to understand what the agency wants before you go after what you're looking for. And I'm going to try to help you with that. So from the DoD perspective, this is what happens. Under the direction of the president, every 5 years, he asks the DoD to come up with a strategic plan for STEM, and this was the plan that was generated for 2016 to 2020. The president asked for oversight, and this comes from the White House Office of Science and Technology Policy. The Secretary of Defense actually makes sure the plan gets done, and the military services, the Army, Navy, Air Force, are the ones who administer the actual plan. So what you'll see on the very far right is the Army, Navy, and Air Force have their own individual plans that come out of this STEM strategic plan. They each have their own website, and they each have their own programs. And what you'll see is it's very disjointed. There may be a direction that comes out of the plan that says, do K through 12 education. So educate the kids from kindergarten to 12th grade. The Army may do it one way, the Navy may do it another way, and the Air Force may do it another way. So that's why you need to understand the nuances of this.
Pardon my ignorance, but are the Marines part of one of these?
They're underneath the Navy.
Oh, okay.
Okay, so this is what happens. The White House and the president directs, attract, recruit, and retain the best STEM professionals you possibly can to help us do our mission in a complex world. The Secretary of Defense then says, hey, collectively address all the critical STEM challenges we have and make it a national priority within the Department of Defense. And then that plan that I showed you that comes out for 5 years, the goals that come out of that are how do we communicate the DoD strategy to the world? How do we inspire our youth to be part of this, how do we cultivate the talent pool and get them out of school and get them into the DoD? And then how do we promote and increase our STEM activity across the country? So this is what ends up coming out of the strategic plan, a whole host of programs. And those programs can be anything from K-12 education to apprenticeships, science fairs, science competitions, and then the stuff that you're interested in, of course, internships, fellowships, and scholarships. What I'm going to do is, since they have a whole host of programs and not all of them are relevant to you guys, is just go over the top 3 that are most relevant to you so you'll understand how the DoD works. So this is the Science, Math, Research for Transformation, or SMART scholarship program sponsored by the DoD. Basically, it provides you with full tuition, it gives you an annual stipend, it gives you internship over the summer, and then when you're done, you can go work for the DoD if you'd like. So this is the summary slide I was talking about. I have a summary slide like this for all 45 of these programs, and I promise you I'm not going to drag you through it. But what I tried to do was, for each program, tell you who sponsored it, what's the goal of the program, what are the eligibility requirements, because you are not eligible for every one of these programs, what are the benefits as far as cash payments and stuff like that, and then importantly, what is the timeline and what are the contacts? If you're interested in this, how do you go see them? And there's really a huge amount of information in this presentation, so if you want to take it away with you later and use it for your future work, you can. The nice thing about...
if you're willing, we will post your presentation to the ERC website.
Go ahead. The nice thing about the DoD is they don't just say it's a scholarship. They say, we're the DoD, we have specific needs. So they give you a very specific list of things that they're interested in. So if you are a chemical engineer, this is for you. If you're a botanist, this ain't for you, okay? So now, as I said, most of the scholarships, they hand you a pile of cash and you're done. But in the case of the DoD, their scholarship program is a scholarship for service program. And what that means is that you have a commitment commensurate with the length of your scholarship award. So that means if you take a year of money from the DoD, then when you graduate, you have to spend a year working for the DoD. If you take 4 years of money, you have to spend 4 years working for the DoD. That is a scholarship for service program, and you have to be careful about that, because if you take their money, you owe them your 4 years. A lot of the other scholarships aren't that way, so you need to understand it. Now, the reason why the DoD does that is because, number one, they're investing in you, and their hope is that you're going to want a career in the Department of Defense. And so they want some kind of return on investment. Now, what happens is a lot of times people will go work for the DoD, they'll love it, and they'll stay there for their career. Other people will go put in there 1 year and they're gone. Okay. The requirements on this one is just that you have to be a U.S. citizen, you have to be 18 years old, you have to have at least a 3.0 average. And what comes out of this is you get paid $25,000 to $38,000 per year, depending on whether you're a undergraduate, a master's, or a doctorate. They scale the dollar values depending on your years. And then, as I said, you have to work commensurate with the time. Now, in most cases, the application deadlines for scholarships are somewhere between October and December. They review them around January, they let you know around February, March, and then you start sometime over the summer. Yes?
The obligation you owe them afterwards,
Yes.
Can that be uniform or non-uniform? Doesn't matter.
In most cases, since you're a person with a degree, they hope that you will go work in their research labs, like the Army Research Lab or the National Lab or something like that, and use your educational background. But if you choose to go to service, you can do that. It is an option.
And does that
Count?
does that count? Yeah,
Yes. Yes, it's 4 years of service.
I'm assuming most of these require a security clearance.
Not all of them. Some of the DoD ones, which you'll see later on, do a basic research that you can do in an unclassified environment. Some of them are really detailed environment, and then you end up with a classified a security clearance to work in a classified environment. But it can be either or. Okay, this just to give you an idea how stiff the competition is in the Department of Defense. Only 11% of the people who wrote an application got in. That is tough. Okay. Now, the interesting part about it is 53% were bachelors, 19% masters, 22% PhD. So they skew towards bachelors because they want you to go 4 years and then come out in 4 years. But it's a good spread. The other interesting thing about the 2015 awards, at least, were 23% electrical engineers, 20% mechanical engineers, 16% computer engineers. You get the message? They're looking for engineers, okay? All right, but there are other categories that were accepted. So this is the kind of information you really need to know, because you don't want to waste your time sending your application into something you're not going to get. The better you understand, the better your probability to win, okay? And that's important. Okay, their fellowship program is called NSEG, the National Defense Science and Engineering Graduate Program. $102,000 in stipend, that's some good change, okay? We're not talking little money here. Full tuition on top of that and health insurance, 3-year awards, okay? So here's the sheet for this. Again, notice that the Secretary of Defense kicks these off, but all 3 of the services, Air Force, Army, and Navy, have their own plans, okay? These are for doctoral students only, okay? So there again is a requirement, doctoral students only. You have to be near or beginning the stage of your graduate study when you start this, and you must pursue a doctoral degree or you're out, okay? $102,000 stipend over 36 months, full tuition and fees, health insurance, 3-year award. Again, you start in September and start the next year. Again, they provide the same type of functional areas for graduate fields. This is their 3rd and final program, which used to be called NSF. It's now been renamed the Vannevar Bush. This is for the rest of you folks who are not students. This is for tenured professors, staff scientists, and engineers who want to conduct basic research, okay? So you see they're funding undergraduates, they're funding grads, and they're even funding professors and staff. This one here is, as I said, conducting basic research. So therefore, the fact that it's conducting basic research, it says somewhere on here that you don't necessarily require a security clearance. Oh, here it is, supporting unclassified basic share. It is for tenured professors, scientists, and engineers. And look at this, $3 million over 5 years. It's a good chunk of change. Again, they provide the categories of biology, information science, neuroscience, and so they're looking for specific things. You get to present at DoD conferences, you go through DoD reviews, you get to work in DoD laboratory spaces, and you get to present at DoD STEM conferences. So you get a lot of exposures with this. Okay.
Excuse me, so if a faculty member is selected for this, they get $3 million over 5 years?
That's correct.
For one person?
Well, for your project.
Project.
You're supposed to have a team
That's
with
really
you.
a lot
But
of money.
$3 million. Well, that's why I always say to people, they keep banging their head against the wall. I'm trying to get this NSF grant for $100K. And I said, you ever thought of the DoD who gives millions? Okay. It's a lot of money.
It does say up to, though. Do you know on average how much is actually given out just for that? Around the max?
On the higher side. On the higher side.
Wow.
That's why they only award 10, because they give the max to 10,
Yeah.
because they want all 10 of them to spend as much as they can and get as much work done as they can in that period of time. Okay, so here's one that's specifically for the Navy, the Naval Research Lab. It's, again, a postdoc. They award 40 postdocs per year. You have to write a 5 to 10-page proposal. Your stipend is a max of $76,000 a year, and it's renewable each year. And again, these guys require a security level because of the work that's done at the Naval Post Lab. Okay, so that was 1 scholarship program, 2 fellowship programs. Here's an example of a DoD internship program. This is from the Air Force. It is focused on STEM, of course. Look how generic this is now, because it's an internship program, okay? Now they just say we look at research projects, we look at training. You notice the categories have gone away, okay? Because internships are looked at as, somebody shows up for the summer and does a little work. So they're not as specific about the requirements, okay? But the nice part about this is you can get paid for the summer, and in some cases, these last a whole year. So if you want to do work, you get paid for the whole year while you're in school. This is another one from the Navy. This one, the stipends are between $5,400 and $10,800. Again, you submit in October, and again, you start in the spring. That's another one. So here's the Army version of it. These guys pay you $10 an hour. So unlike saying here's $10,000, it's $10 an hour, and it depends on how many hours you work. And whether it's 3 months or a year, that can add up to a lot of money over a year. But the message that I'm trying to get across is there are a lot of opportunities across the Army, Navy, Air Force. There's everything from scholarships to fellowships to internships. They all operate on relatively the same timeline, but they all have different eligibility requirements and different commitment requirements. And what you need to do is understand those before you chase after them. Keep going through these. Okay, so that pretty much gives you a really quick overview of the DoD. I'd like to go through some of the non-DoDs. Is there a preference in the room as far as whether we do scholarships, fellowships, internships?
Before we move on, I just had a question about the DoD stuff.
Sure.
Say you're applying to several to improve your chances.
Yes.
And you get admitted to several. What is the process for declining or saying, I'm not going to be able to do all these at once? If you
The
incur
choice is up to you which one you
Okay.
take, okay? But you have to immediately let the other people know
Yeah.
that you're not accepting, and then you tell them why. And it's kind of like going into college, right? Where
Yeah.
if you don't get in, you're on a waiting list. When you turn yours down, the next guy on the waiting list will take
And
your
so
position.
you don't incur that commitment to go and do that work or to pay back that until you actually formally accept that award.
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, any preference to scholarship, fellowship, or internship for the non-DoD?
Internships, I guess?
Before you move on, so these are, what you're describing are opportunities that the individual has to apply for. I'm asking, is that occurring?
If you
As opposed to, say, the department trying to go out and get a bunch of scholarship monies.
Traditionally, if it's an internship or a scholarship, it's an individual person going for that. I need money to pay for my college, or I need work for the summer. Fellowships can vary. In some cases, it is done by the person, but in most cases, it's done by the university. And it's kind of like writing a grant, right? You have to write a proposal to the government agency and say, I would like to be part of this fellowship program. Now, again, it depends on the program. Some of them, it's like an individual, and some of them, it's like a university.
Because, I mean, we occasionally will get proposals from DoD, Navy, or asking, they want to give STEM scholarships.
Yep.
So we try to put together a package to try to win that.
Mhm.
But that's different.
Yes. Let me do a couple of the scholarships first before I go to your request for the internship, because I want to get past some of the government ones and show you the ones with the foundations and the corporations. There are many corporations out there like Coca-Cola, Microsoft, Wells Fargo Bank that have same scholarships as a federal government agency do. And it's the same process. You submit an application and you get selected based on your merit. And so if you're having trouble banging your head against the wall with the federal government, there are a lot of foundations and a lot of corporations that offer the same opportunities. Most of the foundations and the corporations do not require service for scholarships. So if they give you the money, it's uncommitted. So, all right, so you've all heard of the Bill and Melinda Gates and the Gates Foundation, right? World Health and all that good stuff. They specifically have a scholarship program focused on minorities, underserved and underprivileged. So depending on your status in life, obviously, this is an opportunity for you to jump in on this. Now, the nice part about it is that it's very wide: computer science, education, engineering, library, math, public health sciences, okay? Very wide, very generic, not very specific, okay? So it allows you a lot of opportunity and a lot of leeway to get in. They award 1,000 a year. So you can see where the Defense Department's awarding 10, 20, 30, and 15% success rate. These guys were 1,000 a year, okay? They've already funded 20,000 of them in total. They've awarded almost $1 billion in scholarships. Okay, that's huge amounts of money, okay? The average award, as they say, is around $13,000. But what's really impressive about them is the retention rate is 96%. That means once you get the money, you want to stay in the program and they hold you in the program, and therefore you can get a 4-year ride on one of these scholarships. The nice part about these guys also is their application process is open. Most of the DoD ones, you have to apply somewhere between October and December. If you miss that, you're done for the year. These guys, you can send an application in 365 days a year. Okay. Jackie Robinson Foundation, another foundation. Okay, they again have scholarships for study abroad, postgraduates, and undergraduates. $28,000 over 4 years, and it gives you access to all their sponsored programs. They're sponsored all the rest of the things that they do in their foundation. They have a 3-month window for their applications. UNCF has one. Again, 10,000 students, 1,100 schools, 37 HBCUs. So this is another thing that's important. The fact that you guys are in an HBCU. There are scholarships out there that are focused on HBCUs, which gives you guys an advantage, okay? So knowing that, again, helps your probability of success in getting these funds. They have a minimum of 2.5 instead of the 3.0 that you have at the DoD. Again, basically all they require is that you have a 2.5, you're a U.S. citizen, and you're in the school. Their max award is $5,000. So again, you can see this is very, it differs a great deal from $1,000 to $5,000 to $30,000. There's a great deal of variance in the requirements, in the timelines, and in the dollar values. Here's the Thurgood Marshall College Fund Scholarship. These guys, again, require a GPA of 3.0, be a U.S. citizen, $3,100 per semester, so that's $6,200 a year, okay? And the application varies by scholarship as far as when they do it. But again, they have different types of scholarships that you can advance. They have one called a financial gap for people in urgent financial need. They have one for access scholarship, which is for more like room and board and on-campus living as opposed to academic tuition. They have programmatic scholarships, which cover the full tuition, the full fees, the full campus. So you can see the scholarships are different grades of competitiveness and different grades of what they cover. Here's the Ron Brown Scholarship, again, another foundation with the mission of uplifting people of all races, colors, and ethnicities, okay? And their eligibility requirements are very, they don't have like a 3.0 or 2.5. They just say you must excel academically. So that leaves a lot of room for what that means, okay? So that gives them a lot more leeway to give somebody a scholarship if their grades aren't quite up to snuff with some of the other ones. And again, it's a $40,000 scholarship for 4 years, $10,000 a year. I guess we'll go through the fellowships. Oh, well, this is one thing I wanted to make note of before I blow through all this stuff, is that if you go organization by organization, you need to understand what you want to do with your life. This is the Department of Energy. Okay? If you want to get a scholarship, fellowship, internship out of them, you have to be somehow interested in energy, whether it be solar cells or oil or coal or gas, whatever it is, you need to be interested in that. This is one that comes out of the Department of Energy also, that's computational science. They need to use their mathematical skills to do oil exploration and other types of development. So now, the EPA, of course, they're the Environmental Protection Agency, okay? So if you're an environmental person, if you like marine biology, if you like anything that has to do with environmental health or animals or anything, you go to the EPA, okay? This is the National Science Foundation. The National Science Foundation funds basic science, okay? So their stuff is incredibly generic, okay? It can be on any discipline, any focus, any funding. This is a great way to go after something very generic. Now, they spend $70,000 a year, okay, and they give you monthly stipends of $5,000. So in their case, instead of them giving you a chunk of money up front that you pay your entire tuition with, they give you monthly payments, okay? So you have to somehow pay your bills up front and then pay on a pay basis. But the nice part about the NSF is that they have a very generic requirement. Now, here's the U.S. Department of Agriculture, okay? What does the U.S. Department of Agriculture do? They check for animal safety, they check for food safety, So if you're an agricultural person or forest person or something, this is the place you go for that kind of work. National Institutes of Health. What is the National Institutes of Health business? It's health, okay? So if you're into doctors, if you're into biotechnology, if you're into med tech, if you're into life sciences, if you're into any type of thing that's medical related, you go to the National Institutes of Health. And they have their programs that are for MDs and PhDs and dual programs where you could be an MD and a PhD. But they do veterinarian, they do medical, and they do health. So the message I'm getting across in kind of a low and deliberate way is that there are a lot of agencies out there. Each agency has their own specification. Some of the agencies like NSF are very broad, which allows everybody to go. Other ones are very focused, and depending on your background, your needs, your wants, you have to decide what's the best way to do it. Now here's the Centers for Disease Control, okay? What do? They work for public health and safety, right? They're into epidemiology and environmental health and infectious disease and biomarkers. If you're that kind of person, emergency medicine, preventative medicine, this is where you go for those guys. This is an interesting consortium. It's the National GEM Consortium. It is also for minorities, underrepresented, and underserved, and they promote mostly master's degrees, and they give a $4,000 stipend per semester, so that's $8,000 for a 2-semester year. They offer programs for master's and doctoral. For the doctoral, it's $16,000 instead of $8,000 for the master's guys. These guys have an incredibly interesting foundation that does an awful lot of really good work, and it's very engineering focused. So if you're interested in engineering, this is a very good one to look at. Okay, so for the engineering or the internships that you were asking for, here's a DoD, DOE, Department of Energy internship program. They pay you a $650, up to $650 per week, depending on your academic status. So of course, master's gets paid more than bachelor's, and PhD gets paid the most. Okay. Again, this one is one of those ones that has a very diverse, just the backgrounds. And so what happens is, again, you put in your application in the October, and it's a summer internship. This is, again, an NSF one. This one's $5,000. And, again, this was another generic one, which is exactly what you expect on NSF, because since they do everything, their internships programs are very generic. Now, the nice thing is about these things is, if you go to a place like NSF, you get the choice of either working at NSF itself, or you get the choice of working at one of the places that NSF funds. Same thing like the Department of Energy. You could go work for the Department of Energy in Washington, D.C., or you could work at any one of the Department of Energy labs, okay? If you're from Tennessee and you want to go work at Oak Ridge, right? Or, if you're in New York and you want to work for Brookhaven, or, or if you're from New Mexico and you want to work at Sandia, you can work at any one of the national labs. So it gives you an opportunity to see the world, gives you an opportunity to travel, and it gives you an opportunity, if you're in one of these programs for 4 years and you want to move around, you can try a different national lab each year and see a broad brush stroke of the whole agency. And it's kind of nice because each one of the national labs does totally different things. One lab does robotics, one lab does energy, one lab does life sciences and health. You can run around, and it gives you a very wide background, and it gives you a better idea of what you want to do when you graduate. And for those of you who may be struggling with an idea of what discipline do I want to take, or what do I want to do my PhD thesis on, these kinds of work experiences and internships and fellowships give you an ability to really hone in on that before you have to make a decision in your academic environment. Here's the summer internship program at the National Institutes of Health. Again, the stipends range from $1,800 to $3,000 for grad students. And the only requirement is that you're a U.S. citizen. That, as I said, gives you the ability to work anywhere at NIH, more than 1,200 labs and research projects. That's a huge amount of choice for you to get involved in. So, and again, that's the CDC Internship Program. So I hope I haven't bored all of you to death, but I mean, the intent here was to show you many things. There's an awful lot of opportunity out there for financial aid. Some of it is string-free, get the money and do your education and leave. Some of it requires you to service work at the place. It can be very specific, and it can be very broad. It can be 1 year, 1 month. It can be 5 years So there's an awful lot you need to look at. And so what I will offer to you is we'll put this website up, or this presentation on a website. You can use this information. Contact any of the people. I've given you a contact for every single one of these opportunities. And I will even offer that I'm in the second floor of Fort IRC. If any of you want to drop by anytime and talk about one of these, my door's always open.
Could you talk about the high school seniors that are trying to come to college? And, you know, generally at the department level, we don't have much money for freshmen just because they don't have a proven record. And the monies that we're given, we got to wait till they you know, get some tread under them before. What can we tell seniors that are applying here, you know, when they say scholarships? I always tell them, hey, you know, there's a bunch of, you know, every national chain in the country has scholarships for incoming freshmen. You know, your Walmart, your Kmart, your McDonald's, you know, see your church, go to your parents' jobs. I have not sent them or recommended them to go to any of the government agencies just because I wasn't aware. But do they have for high school seniors that are trying to get money to go to school? Is there some place they can go in this?
Yeah, a lot of both the DoD and the non-DoD government scholarship programs, you are eligible as soon as you hit senior year of high school.
Oh, okay.
And if you're, obviously some of them are just for grads or undergrads, but there are ones in there specifically for if you're 18 years of age and you're graduating from high school and you're going to start your undergraduate career, you are eligible for those scholarships. And so, like I said, if any one of those in there that said undergraduate, that doesn't mean you have to already be in school. A lot of the undergraduate ones mean that if you're a senior, you apply to start your undergraduate.
Do you have to have an acceptance letter from the school?
I do believe it depends on
that makes you an undergrad.
Yeah, I mean, the bottom line is they want, in a lot of them, if you look at it, I'll have to go through to find one, but some of these will say that you have, for like the undergrad and the grad ones, they'll say you have to be registered in a accredited academic institution, right? Well, I'm assuming for the high school ones, you have to have some letter saying you've been accepted at a college. Okay. And what happens is a lot of the people, since there's so much shortage of funding in the universities and not everybody can get academics for your freshman year, you know, you get a federal one for your freshman year. Once you cut your teeth in your freshman year and get your good grades, and you get an academic one out of your university. But it doesn't prohibit you from continuing with the federal one. You can do both as long as you don't, you know, make $20,000 a year for a school that only costs $4,000. Okay, they get a little annoyed at that. Okay, so.
Okay, thank you.
Is there any of these scholarships for international students studying in the U.S.?
Most of them require you to be a U.S. citizen, but there are some that, if you're a national, or say you've come here and become a nationalized citizen, you can. As far as paying for foreign students to come here, the federal government doesn't usually like to do that because, you know, they want to invest in U.S. students who are going to stay in the U.S., and so that's a tough one. So. Other questions?
Could you make some comments on what the agencies hope to get out of this relationship that they form with the students?
Yeah. DoD specifically is putting money out into the colleges because they want the students that have a career in the DoD. So if you take a 4-year fellowship or scholarship from the DoD, they'll either make you do an internship or they'll make you do the service afterwards with the idea that we want you to now take all that you learned in college and apply it to our DoD problem, okay? Like I said, some go in for years, some go in for 4 years, and some leave and some stay for their career. The idea is to try to cherry pick the best students out of the universities to bring them to work on the hardest problems in the Department of Defense, okay? As far as the non-DoD ones, they're less commitment-based, okay? Like the NSF educates people for the sake of educating people. NIH, CDC, DOE, they all hope that you will feel some allegiance to them. You will, you know, educate yourself and then come work in their agency because they paid you. But they don't have as much commitment based as the DoD does. Sure.
For some of those tri programs you said are through the Army, the Navy, or the Air Force?
Yes.
Those are civilian positions in a research lab. Those aren't like military, right?
That's correct.
Just want to make a couple of other comments to kind of give you a sense of the implications of receiving an internship, scholarship, or a fellowship with any one of these agencies. First of all, you've seen a lot of different acronyms up here, and they become very confusing, and the letters get mixed up and everything. On top of all of that, there are private corporations that have contracted with these agencies to supply internships for the summer, for example. So every year in a division of research, we get a request from NASA, actually a contractor from NASA, to supply 12 to 15 students to work at Kennedy Space Center, which is a very good deal because all of the housing is paid for, you end up making, I don't know, $16, $18 an hour. And guess what? On your resume, on your CV, you get to put down NASA. It's a big deal because when you are looking for a job or a position in academia, what do you want to do? You want to put your best foot forward. You want to show people that you've achieved a certain level of credentials. And quite frankly, when a reviewer is looking at your resumes, they're looking for those who have achieved this extra effort in internships or scholarships or fellowships. They go into one pile. They never get to the people that don't have those, quite honestly. Because when you've got 150, 200 resumes to go through, you don't have time to go through the other ones. The other thing that I wanted to tell you is that with all of these, especially in the DoD realm, if you go into a internship program, for example, and you spend a few months during the summer at a facility, and you decide that at some point after you matriculate, you want to go to that agency, typically they count all of that time that you spend in the internships as credit towards your employment there, which doesn't mean much to you when you're 25, but it sure means a lot to you when you're 55, because then you've got extra time within the organization and you can start to develop a better sense of your retirement benefits then too.
Yeah, the other thing is that, it's kind of like when you're a high school kid applying for college, and I got a 3.8 GPA, but I've also been banned, I've been in student council, I've been doing community service. It makes it look better, right? So as Wayne was saying, that when you graduate from college and you have all this work experience with all these government agencies, it helps you get a permanent job. But more importantly, what he was saying is that if you do the internships and fellowships at these companies, two things happen. One, pretty much when you get out of college, they're going to offer you a job because you've been working there, you know them, they know you, they're confident with you. So it really alleviates your problem of, oh my God, I'm graduating from college and I don't have a job, okay? The second thing is, what he was saying is not only does it benefit you down the line that they will add your time, but what it benefits you is a guy coming out of college with no work experience is going to get $20,000, and a guy with all the fellowship internship is going to start out at $35,000, okay? So it actually helps your starting position. So there's a lot of benefit to it. It's not just that you get free money. It's that you get work experience, you get knowledge. It allows you to see the world and see different opportunities and make decisions in college about what classes you want to take, and it secures your future. So it's really important for you to consider this stuff and take advantage of it.
Student questions? Well, before we close out, I'd like to have Dr. Lyles make her announcement and Dr. Nicely. Go ahead.
Hello, everyone.
The questionnaire is already on the tables.
Right. Well, first of all, welcome back to AEG, fall 2016. So I'm glad to see all of you. Some of the faces very familiar. Right at the conclusion of each of these seminars, that you will be asked to complete a satisfaction questionnaire. And satisfaction questionnaires derived from a long history. I'm sure you've seen them before. We've completed them before. They actually have great value for us in terms of tracking the effectiveness of our educational outreach. So I'm very grateful for your participation with that. If you'll just include the name of the presenter and the title of the presentation at the top, that would be very helpful. And then we will have someone collecting them at the conclusion of each one of the
Give everybody his name
seminars.
back.
Yeah, he's going to put the title slide back up.
Are there any questions? Well, if you do have any in future, I'm very reachable, and you can just find me through Dr. Pye, or you can email rgwiles@impact.edu.
You just look at it.
And for me, while you're filling those out, I'm going to hand all the students this brief quiz. I'm not a student, you're a student. Okay. Larry, do you want to do the quiz too? Larry's not a student.
If I'm not one of your students, is this for the presentation or is this for your students?
You're a student, aren't you?
I'm not. I'm just here because I saw the sign up in the lobby.
Well, I wish a lot more students had taken advantage of
Go ahead
this.
and do it.
I think you'll agree with me that Mr. Monachino has really done a splendid job of gathering so many diverse and well-organized. I mean, the format of his presentation, I need to copy that because it was just so consistent. You couldn't even feel the transition. And it's a tremendous resource. He's very generous to agree to let us put it up on the website. It will be available for anyone in the university community. And we will put his photograph up and his email and room number. And you feel free to contact him.
Can you give us that now?
It's complicated. What's your email address? I always
Well, at least his room number and.
Room is
I don't remember his
The
room number.
Fort IRC 203.
Oh, 203. Okay. So let's give Mr. While you're doing those questionnaires and quizzes, let's give him a big hand. You can just leave your questionnaires there and I'll take them off. Thank you.
University?
Yeah, but is it just university-wide you're looking for students?
No,
or do they talk to
actually what happened. You got a second? Actually what happened in that case was the company came and said, they were desperate, it was May.
Yeah, and they need to have
I've got to
students there.
fill 12 positions at Trinity Space Center.
I started in June.
Do you have students? And I said, well, you're late, maybe.
Yeah.
And so we went out and I started directing.
Thank you.
Okay.
I took out a
But
blast announcement.
that would be like unusual for that to happen.
No, actually, companies use the Division of Research as a portal.
Okay.
If they aren't directly recruiting students through the Career Services Office, which is normally they do for permanent hires
Yeah.
that way, they come through because this is actually a research grant. It's given to the university.
Okay.
So basically what happened was they came to the Division of Research, we
Yeah.
wrote out the grant proposal and filled that. And our deliverable was the students.
Students, yeah.
Yeah.
But coming in that late and needing like a bunch of students all at once and being
It's
basically,
now happened 3 years in a row.
wow, okay, so that's
Now
fun.
we get it.
Thank
you, I appreciate it.
So they know they can do it.
They can fill students from years. Okay, so then if I would be interested in doing like an internship like that or something,
You talk to the director of undergraduate research. Are you a grad student?
yeah, or no, undergrad.
Okay, director of undergraduate research, Tanya Hargit, and she's on the 4th floor of the IRC building.
Okay, thank you.
Okay? No, that one didn't count. Sure.
Thanks, that was tremendous.
You're welcome.
And those were just great comments. And I think that really helped.
Well,
do great stuff for
Money
us.
is nice, you gotta think of this.
The consequences, yeah.
Again, I'm the one in the middle, telling them not to talk to race, and I'm trying to help. That's what I'm saying.
Carter, thank you.
No, you are.
Oh, okay.
Do we receive grace for this?